Welcome everybody. We're live on YouTube, I can see. Got Miami in the house, lots of other folk. Fantastic. Well, a very warm welcome. I'm live streaming on a lot of different platforms today, and I'm also live on Zoom with my members, as well as some of my members, as well as some guests today. So I'm really excited, and I want to talk about a very beginner-friendly topic. Well, actually not a beginner-friendly topic, but I want to make it beginner-friendly, and that is jazz and making it swing. Now, when you think about what is swing, famously we say, don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing, right? Famously we say that. What do we mean by that? Why is it so important to swing? How are we as bass players in charge of making things swing, and how can we contribute to the overall feel? I would love to get my comments from you all. Members on Zoom, if you'd put your answer into the chat, and folks on YouTube who I'm seeing popping up, also Facebook, if somebody could let me know if we're live, then... Okay, LinkedIn is not working. All right, all good. But if you would let me know, triplet feel, I love it. Yes, well done, Ben. What else? What else makes it swing? Grease and butter. I like that one, Todd. So, yes, and people who grow up with jazz and who grow up with a certain kind of music, they will often use food references. You know, it's like the spice of the Cuban music, or, you know, you have the, we use a lot of, physical words to describe the feeling of swing, because it really is something that happens in the body. And this is a beautiful bridge into something I'm going to show you in a little bit, because you can't make it swing from your mind. That just doesn't really work very well. We need the body to contribute to the swing feel. And we've gotten a lot of good comments there. Continuous flow is another one. We're getting syncopation. Going to be a little bit careful with that one, because syncopation usually means that the beat falls on an unexpected spot in the bar. And if something is swinging or has a triplety feel, a lot of people call it syncopated, but it's actually not. The syncopation, strictly speaking, is something a little bit different. That said, jazz also has a more upbeat feel rather than a more downbeat feel, like you would get it in, for example, a shuffle. And shuffle and swing, they're both having a triplet subdivision, but they're having a very different sensibility. So I will talk about that a little bit. And again, a very warm welcome to everyone who is joining. Very happy to see some familiar faces here. So hello everybody on Zoom, and enjoy the, what is that, spaghetti? Dang, that looks good. All right, we have lost connection to your camera. All right. There'll be some technical things today. Swing. Oh, here we are. Got it back. And this is the right one too. So fantastic. We're in good shape. It's all good. There's always some gremlins, you know. Hang in there. Thank you. Yeah, wonderful. So the song I wanted to talk about today is Fever, made very famous by Peggy Lee. I'm getting thumbs up from Jody, who I would imagine, being a beautiful singer and performer, probably has performed this. I would assume that'd be a beautiful one. If you got the pipes, folks, this is a great song to do just bass and singing, because it's just beautiful. And it is a great tune, because it's not very hard on the bass, so we can get in there. And what I want to start with is, I'll just show you the line, you know. Fred, if you would put the chart up. I have the chart here for you, and everybody who's in the Zoom will receive the assets afterwards, and Facebook, YouTube, and all the other places you will get the assets from signing up to the link that Fred will post periodically into the chat. So here we go. I am trying to share my screen. I promise I'm trying. Here we go. Desktop 2, share. All right, Zoom, do you see the chart? Zoom, do you see the chart? Okay, very good. It's a fairly simple bass line. You know, usually what I would do, but I'm not going to do that today because we are live streaming, is I would play the Peggy Lee version a little bit so we can hear their fine points. But everybody will get the YouTube link that I recommend you listen to as a reference. But to just show you the line, it's fairly easy. And I got a track for you that Wolf made for us, which I'm going to play. And then you can sort of hear it in context a little bit. You just have to imagine Peggy Lee singing over it. So I see the changes don't give me the intro, but let me just walk you through it. So the changes are essentially, it's mostly A minor, but every other 8 bars we get that little turnaround to the E7. So in the song they go to E7 here, but not in my track. But to just make you hear it, I mean, everybody snaps on 2 and 4, right? Now on Zoom we're not in sync, but I'm gonna need you to do that. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me start that again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. That essentially is the line. The only variations are, as I mentioned, that E7 doesn't always come, right? Verse and chorus are the same. And as the singer knows, you wanna like schmaltz the chorus a little different as you would the verse. Maybe push it a little bit in the chorus, maybe lay it back a touch in the verses. But this is essentially it. Now I transcribed that first verse. For that, I can actually give us this. That's just a triad, right? For those of you that means something. Never know how much I care when you put your arms around me. I got a fever and a dun-dun-dun. What I don't know are the lyrics. So, this is and what we should always know, by the way, me being busted not knowing the lyrics, you should always know what the song is about. It's a sultry, sexy, laid back tune that talks about the, hotness of women, essentially, right? So it's about it's very sensuous, right? And how does the music bring that across? And a big part of that is that swing feel. Okay, so that's the chart essentially. There are some interludes that bring back to the chord change, going back to the 5 earlier, and there is also a continuous transposition going on in the song, which is also something that, you could say raises the temperature, right? So it brings it up higher and higher. If I want to bring something up the next level, there are, musically speaking, a lot of ways I can do that. Actually, I'd be curious what you guys think. If I wanted to raise the temperature, so to speak, if I wanted to bring more excitement in, musically speaking, what options do I have? Anybody have any ideas? And one thing is transposition, right? One, dynamics. I love it, James. I love it. Dynamics, beautiful. Subdivide the rhythm, which would be known as going double time or double time feel, which is something that if we get to it, I'd like to show you. What other ways are there to raise the temperature or bring in excitement. So what other ways can you think of? We already have subdivision, slightly alter the beat. I mean, one thing that you could also do is go into a completely new part, right? Just break, go into a new feel, new sensibility, right? That's often done. But yes, you have mentioned the most important ways. And what's so interesting about this song, she actually, if anything, becomes softer and softer and softer, but it feels more and more intense, right? It makes you just be at the edge of your seat and just listen to every nuance of it. And then in the end, it just almost fades out, right? There's a slight retard, very slight, but essentially it's one line all the way through. Oh, another thing you could do arrangement-wise, by the way, you could add instruments. And this tune is very sparse. There's a little bit of drums, and the little that the drums do are very much underscoring the lyrics. For example, there's the word sizzle in the lyrics at one point, and the drummer goes shh right before that, which I thought is so neat, because if you do it afterwards, it's almost comical, right? But if you do it before the word is spoken, then it's kind of like making it bubble up a little bit more. So I thought that that was also really interesting. But they keep it small. They keep it just really spacious. We added, some piano to the track, but in essence, it's just her. It really brings out the voice and that bass, right? A little bit of drums, but it's super sparse. So another option I would have if I wanted to raise the temperature would be to bring in other instruments. I could bring in strings and horns and whatnot, but she doesn't do any of that. She wants to keep it really simple. So it's a very beautiful example, musically speaking, of raising the temperature without using all these other possible devices, She just goes up by a half step and up by another half step and up by another half step so that we eventually land in B minor land. So yes, modulating the key. Exactly, Mahesi. Modulation is what she is using in order to raise the temperature. All right, now let's talk about the feel of jazz, just in general. Now, this tune is what we call into. What does that mean? Into. What does it mean? Put in the chat, unmute yourselves. What does into mean? Feel on 1 and 3. Actually, I would say half of that I agree with and the other half I don't. Feel 2 beats per measure. Y'all are in the right direction. So we're getting some comments here. Feel 2 beats per measure. Feel on 1 and 3. 2 whole notes per measure. Yes. 2 whole notes per measure. You're all very, very close and not technically speaking incorrect. But if we're really talking about the swing feel, I would wash out a couple of things here, or flash out a couple of things here. The feel, I believe, is more on 2 and 4 than on 1 and 3. But I am playing on 1 and 3. So am I playing whole notes? Well, not really. I'm playing a quarter note, and then a quarter note rest, and another quarter note, and another quarter note rest. And this is so interesting to me because I had a student the other week who actually brought in this tune. And he's fabulous with, any kind of, he's just really great with shuffle and with a bunch of different, with shuffle and blues and R&B and, a lot of these more downbeat oriented music styles. And he had a hard time feeling the swing on, on Fever. And this was so interesting to me because if he was thinking it like a first thing, that's a shuffle. That's also triplety, ternary, right? And when I play Fever, obviously I'm playing the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Little variation, right? And then one time in the song he plays that entire fill. But it's in 2, right? And oftentimes when we play jazz, we play, as a contrast to in 2, we play in 4, otherwise known as a parking bass, right? Otherwise known as a walking bass. So, and we as bass players, we don't do much, especially in a feel like in 2. But I still am responsible for this feel of making it swing. And the way I can do that is, for one, feeling the upbeats, even though I'm playing the downbeats. So I'm playing, And what I like to do, and we're electric players, so our phrasing and note length is even more important than on the upright, where you have that natural decay, right? But if I go, I like to play a little dead note here. You have to be careful. I have played with producers who did not want that. They just wanted even thumb muted, right? Or just. But I am feeling the 2 and 4. That's the main point. If I'm having a shuffle in the back of my mind and I'm going bum ba ding ba dum ba do do do, and I still play the same bass line, bum ba ding ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum, it just feels different. Do you understand? So it's a very subtle thing, and it's something that happens in my body. Because on the shuffle, I'm boom, ba-dum, ba-dum, and I'm not judging. It's not one is worse than the other. It's just a different feel, and you have to have the right feel for the right context. So if I'm thinking bum, ba-dum, 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 it just feels different than when you go If you have a hard time feeling that, one trick you can use, put on a metronome on 2 and 4, right? What's the tempo of that tune? We clocked that out, 130. So what's half of 130, folks? Somebody help me out with that, 65. There we go, 65. Now that's a sparse beat. Is this loud enough, guys? Can you hear? 1, 2. Okay, I gotta get rid of that too. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I do that, if I have that on, and I allow myself to really lean into that feel of 2 and 4, that can be helpful. I've met a lot of people who had a really hard time doing that. Okay, if you need a bridge, here's a trick. Take that metronome and give it a so-called 2-beat. Every metronome will have a different setting, but most likely any good metronome has the option to give you like a downbeat on a different sound. And you double it up. So here it's 130, back to 130. So, and now you decide, I like to use the lower tone for the 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You lock yourself into that feel with the 2 different clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ah, 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 ah. So that can be a bridge. You set it on the double tempo, give it 2 different clicks, and do something with your body on the 2 and 4. Because when you do that, you mark it out. And that really helps you to realize what the effect of that is, right? It really helps you mark out the 2 and the 4 while keeping it light. And I think, see if you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The 1 just comes a little bit too violent if you do that. And it's a very subtle feeling. So that's number 1 to make this tune work. Are there any questions about any of this? Any questions or comments? Feeling the 2 and 4. Feeling the 2 and 4. That's a very important bit. Then the other important bit is to feel the smaller subdivision. Hey, I'm playing quarter notes. What do I care what's happening a layer below, right? So a lot of people have correctly said that something like swing is has a triplet D subdivision. And I want to help you with that. For one, when you listen to the tune by Peggy, snip along. There's no better drill than that to get. If you have trouble feeling that, just feel the 2s and 4s, because it's a very good tune to start out with, because the 2s and 4s are so pronounced in the, and I actually think I read somewhere that it was the producer who did that, so he actually get performing credit for doing that. So there you go. So she's doing it and the producer's doing it, and just snip along and see that you don't fall into the downbeat. But then the other thing is, underneath that 2, 3, 4 happens what I like to call the dingalas. Dingala, that's 3 syllables, right? I have a lot of goofy ways to help you remember things. I have a whole rhythm program that works with words, all sorts of weird mnemonics with funny names. But I have learned as a teacher that if you use funny words or mnemonics, they can really help you remember things. So I lean into them. And I'm just going to ask you to go with them, even if it's not terribly academic for the moment. But I'm going to say dingala. Because if I get 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and I'm all in my head. And I want to get out of my head. There's actually been research done how we perceive rhythm, how we feel rhythm. And believe me, once you start improvising and once you start going out of like a fixed bass line, especially relevant for those of you who are maybe just used to playing tab, just copying something down, right? You want to break through that. And one thing that's at the basis of that is that you feel the rhythm in your body rather than you're up here all the time trying to count your way into it, right? So I use those dingalas because they're a bridge between the head and the body. And then you want to listen to the tune and go, dingala, 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 bunka doo bum, ba-doo, bunka digga da digga da digga da da, right? It's like a 3, and I'm playing the first and the last when I do 8th notes, right? So let's be clear. When I do, let me see, I have a track that's just A minor. So here, this, say you want to snap along even just with that. 2, 3, 4, 1. And then feel the dingala, 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and dingala, dingala, dingala. I can even feel it in myself when I do the counting versus the feeling it. It feels very different. I'm like 2 reglemented, 2 up there, right? But this is a good step to help you into the feel. I'm very aware. You want to play, you want to make it work on the bass. But these are bases, foundations that really help you feel the missing link. And as they say, it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Right? So you have to feel that, and you have to train yourself. If you've listened to a lot of shuffle, a lot of downbeat-oriented music, then that might not come naturally to you. That's okay. It just means you need to practice it, right? And so what I was going to say, so now I want to show you something. As a bass player, I mean, in this tune, I play mostly quarter notes and quarter note rests, right? And sometimes a little fill and dead notes and all these other things and triplets to spice things up. But what I want to show you is I can, even with just that sparse playing, make it swing or not. And I will demonstrate that. If I set this, I'm going to give you quarter note, then it's even more pronounced. So, are these quarter notes that I'm about to play swinging? Yes or no? Zoom folks, give me yes. Thumbs up, thumbs down for no. That's our convention around here with the membership. That means yes, that means no. I'm going to put this back to here. Oops. So, are these swinging, yes or no? No. Versus these. And I was still just playing quarter notes, right? But I got signals from everybody that is completely correct. What did I do differently? Can you put your finger on it? No, says Crystal. Yeah, that's correct. It was not swinging that time, and it was swinging the other time. What was different? What was different? What was different? Increased note length, note length, note length. Yes. I could feel your silent upbeat. I love that one, Mahesi. Yes. Note length. A lot of people putting their finger right on it. Value of the quarter notes. Yes, Todd. Absolutely. Yeah, you're off loosen it up as far as being on the beat. I was not trying to be off the beat or laid back or anything like that. It might slightly come with that, but that wasn't my intention. This is also something you could potentially work with. But yeah, no, the main thing was the length of that quarter note. And what happened in my mind? Well, in one version, I was thinking up and down, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3, ba beep, ba ba beep, ba 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 ba. Bop, bop, right? And you know, the simplest way of getting your way, again, we're talking about getting the rhythm into your body, right? Because that's where the swing is. Just do this. Here are my quarter notes, and then put your hand up, and there are your eighth notes, right? And if I hold my note for the length of where I'm down here, I'm not gonna swing because I'm locked into a straight subdivision, right? So how about if I go dingala, 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 right? Now I'm going to have to say dingala in the space of one beat. So even though this is not a fast tune, it feels kind of fast. Dingala, ding. Dingala, 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 dingala. And now I'm going to play or what I was thinking in my mind was dinga, hold the note, la, lift it. Now get me right, I can also play completely legato, meaning no spaces between the notes, right? No spaces at all. That would sound like this. That can swing just as well. But whether I make spaces or not, in my mind, I'm going dingala, 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 dingala. And I'm feeling that so loud it becomes almost like a heartbeat inside of me. And that's what gives you that little train track along which you do everything from little burps and little dead notes and little embellishments. And it translates somehow. Do you know what I mean? So it's a feeling you want to cultivate, the ternary subdivision, the upbeats, just to summarize everything we've talked about so far, right? Ternary subdivision, you want to feel it by saying something like dingle. Amy Nolte, whose piano channel is wonderful, great piano player on YouTube, she says chunka, 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 right? Whatever you do, you have to make it something physical. Dingala, 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 right? That is something physical. With words, I can get into the body. So the triplety subdivision, even if you're not playing it most of the time, other than when you play a fill or a little burp, right? But you got to feel it. And that's what's running through my mind like a train. And I want to link up to that. And that will translate to a good swing feel. And then number 2, the upbeaty feel. Not 1, 2, and 3, and 4, or dingala, dingala, dingala. But it's rather dingala, no, 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, dingala, 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 dingala. Right? So the 2 and the 4. And I will also say, if you just watch what the body does when I do up and down, in my mind, it's a square thing, right? It's square. Feels square. Again, this is not a judgment. I love music that's straight, right? It's just, it fits at the right moment, right? It just has a more up and down feel. Also, when you watch the dancers. Now, as soon as you have a subdivision of 3, ternary, ding-a-la, it's like a waltz. And what do people do when they dance in 3? They start turning. So in my body, the non-swing straight is a square feeling versus the swing is a round feeling, right? It's like even my head does it, right? So these are some tips that are hopefully helpful to get into the swing feel. And now, again, my encouragement, listen to a lot of tunes and do it along with it. Go to shows, watch people play live, and just find the 2 and 4, snip along with it, and find the dingalas. It's so educational. And then when that starts to feel a little bit more comfortable, you can play a simple line like dingala, 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 dingala. So that would be my advice for swing feel. Any questions, wishes, concerns about that? The dingala feel. And I've been to so many universities and places, and very few people actually talk about how to get the swing feel. And I know it can be very frustrating when you really want to learn and you're sort of feeling you're not quite there and you're listening to yourself and it doesn't sound as cool as when, some of the people you admire play, and you're constantly trying to figure out what is it that they're doing differently. And then you'll get, people sometimes will say things like, well, you either got it or you don't, or you got to grow up with it, else you could never learn it. And that just always hurts my heart, because if you think about what exactly happens, you can learn it. You can add it to your repertoire. And it's absolutely possible to learn it. So, I hope that bit was helpful. I'm going to talk about another part of playing jazz. It's when you play, songs, pop song, rock songs. Typically, a lot of people, especially if they're self-taught, go on the internet and they check out the tab and they want to know which note needs to be played when. And once they have that, they feel like they can play the song, right? And in a way, that's true. And it's not a bad way to get you started. But at some point, you will reach a point where you feel like, well, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't really understand how I could break out of it. If you see somebody else play Fever, the bass line is so simple. But if you go to a jam session and people break into Fever, they'll do all sorts of things. They'll start walking in 4. Somebody might say bass solo, right? And what do you do? And so you feel like this coloring by the numbers thing gets you, i.e. tab, gets you only so far, and you might want to break out of it and discover your own fills and your own feel and your own way of getting it out there and your own, put your flavor in there. And that's what I hear a lot of musicians say. They go, my God, I wish I could do that. I could just, play a fill or play a song I've never heard before, just because somebody goes, hey, it's a 1-6-2-5 and goes to the 4 in the bridge. Go, and a musician knows what that means. So for that, you need 2 things. You need music theory and you need to know the fretboard. And I will just casually point to the 2 books behind me there that talk about these 2 important bits, because when you know music theory, it just decodes what it is you're doing. And I've met so many people. That's why I wrote this book, because if you crack open your typical music theory book, it's on page 1, it's like treble clef, bass clef, and page 2 is like the rhythm pyramid, and every good boy does fine and all that stuff. It's important to learn to read. I'm just saying, most bass players run for the hills when they see that, because it feels like it doesn't relate to who you are and to what you want to do and to what you already know. And if you have played a bunch of songs on the bass, you know way more theory than you might realize. You just don't know the names for it, right? But anybody who has played, that's a minor pentatonic, you probably played that song, and many others. That's the guitar plays that, not the bass. But that was a minor pentatonic, and the latter was a major pentatonic for my girl, right? So you might have played it, and when it comes along in a different way, you might have said, there's got to be some formula under this. Yeah, that's all music theory does, right? And a lot of people who are excellent musicians, and then you ask them, about an altered scale or some advanced theory bit, they go, I don't know what that is, but then you hear them play it. You know, a lot of fantastic musicians just have their own vernacular. They have their own way of organizing it. They might not have that, you know, same name as it's in the book, but they have a way of organizing theory, and they have a way of organizing the fretboard. So my whole idea with this book was I wanted to meet most bass players where they're at, meaning they know some shapes on the fretboard. They just don't know the names for it. They just don't know how it, you know, relates together. And they want to. They realize that if I learn that code, then I can advance. And that is the truth. And so music theory. And in terms of music theory, this tune, Fever, has 2 chords. It's got a 1 chord on the minor, minor 7, A minor 7, and a 5 chord every 6 bar, every so often. And that's the 5, right? It's not even diatonic. It's sort of diatonic. Some people consider the dominant 5 to be diatonic, but I don't want to get into the weeds. But what's important is I got 2 chords, A minor 7 and E7, right? And then you must know that there are certain shapes that go with these. A minor 7, those are triads, those are shapes. Like in my book, I start with the intervals. We learn all the intervals like Lego pieces, right? And then you can put them together in a certain way. Well, minor third plus a major third on top, that's your minor triad. And another minor third on top, we got a minor 7, right? And then when you know that, you can already do a lot. But you really start cooking if you know this everywhere on the bass, up and down, backwards and forwards. And that's what we do in the pattern system. So I just wanted to give you one quick example so you understand how much this can help. And I'm going to go on my screen share again, and I'm going to show you up and down the neck what the A minor 7 looks like. A minor triad, sorry Fred, A minor triad. So if you look at the A minor triad, we want to know this backwards, forwards, and sideways, please. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here if I can get it together. And here would be the A minor triads, the way I love to teach that stuff. And let me put these 2 side by side. A minor triads and A minor 7. And it's so educational to see that. And you know, you might know these things in theory, and you need to know them in theory first. So if you have my books, if you're interested in reading them, start with the theory book. Start with the theory book. Now I have them side by side, Fred. Anything you can do, start with the minor triads. Perfect, thank you, that's perfect. And so these are the shapes of the A minor triad all across the neck. And my critics often say, gosh, Ari, then you're staying just in one bass, right? Because we practice these systematically, one step after another, one area after another. There are 5 areas you define that are defined in my system, and you just go area by area, right? And you're just staying in one position. Well, I don't have to, because the beauty of this is if I really do my homework and I learn what to do, then, you know I can play it. I can play it in area by area. I'll put the thing up in a second and show you. But I can also do things like this, you know. I can go... I can go any old way I want to, because I just know where the darn notes are, you know. Like A minor 7, I can, for example, I can do 2 per string. Wait. Right? And it's not hard for me, because I just know where the notes are. And I can do it diagonally. I can do 2 notes by string. I give myself goofy assignments, you know. I'll do most of it down here. And then I walk up on the G string. Or maybe I want to go as much as I can on this string and then go here. Right? And do the rest of it there. But you need to know these notes everywhere on the bass, no matter where you are. And that's where the system is extremely powerful. So this area by area is just a phase, right? Once you know it, you transcend it. That's the goal, because you want to know it all across the bass. So you don't need to just be locked in. This is just a stepping stone. And later in the book, I think it's chapter 10 or something, we do diagonal playing and shapes within shapes and all sorts of things. But essentially, the method is based on 5 distinct shapes. All right, let me put that triad back up. So I'm going to play this for you here for a second. The zoomers, if you want to make my picture bigger, I believe there is a little line that if you just mouse over my picture, you can pull and direct how big you see me versus how big you see the screen share. So if you are on Zoom and you have the teacher view selected, just mouse over my picture and then there's a line that appears. You can make me smaller or bigger so you can either see my fretboard or you can see, I wonder if this is a good view here. Maybe that's a good view. So if I just do the triads, right? I want to go area by area and just know where those notes are, right? And I always go, I mean, everybody knows this, root 3, 5, right? But there's also this one, and there's also this one when I'm in this area, right? So there are all these notes. I want all the notes in that area because that's the only way I will get complete knowledge of this. Right? I go area by area and all of these shapes are very well ingrained into my hand. Now I'm going to add a note because my chord, and by the way, it actually sounds pretty neat if I just walk triads. And why wouldn't you, want to practice that? Let's see. This is a great way to get this under your belt, right? You learn the 5 shapes, and then you want to break out of it. And here I'm going to play a walk. I'm just going up and down the neck, just playing triads. It can sound pretty darn hip when you make all these jumps, right? And would you play that in the song? Well, maybe. It depends. You can make that determination if it fits with whatever else is happening. But I can tell you, talking about, what sounds good in terms of a walking bass, what sounds really good is if you have a certain idea for one chorus, and then you have another idea for another chorus, right? And then you have yet another idea for the next chorus. And I love doing that, just doing a chorus of just triads, or maybe 4 bars of just triads, right? So you need to know where they are, so you can jump around, and do all sorts of acrobatics with. And I love doing stuff like this. It sounds very virtuose, but it still stays out of the way because I'm not stepping on anybody. I'm just playing. Your Honor, I was only playing triad notes, right? So I'm, in case somebody has any issues with, I'm only playing triad notes. Put it in time, make it swing, ding-a-la, 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 and you're good, right? But this is just one way. There are many ways how you can build a walking bass line. You can use chromatics, you can use triad tones, you can use 4-note chords. Okay, let's use the 4-note chords. I'm going to go back to the screen share. And Fred, if you would put up the dominant 7 now, the minor 7. So now all I did was, in my method, I make you work for it. I'm not just putting it in front of you. I make you draw out all these diagrams. There are some people here in the Zoom who have been through several levels of my pattern system. It is so much more valuable if you write it out yourself rather than me just putting it in front of you, right? You need some of that to understand it, to get you started, but I'm not putting it in front of you in every single key. And I have critics who think that's an awful thing to do. I'm supposed to put the funnel on top of your head and just get it in them. But I don't agree with that because I know when the student sits there with my pattern paper and they get extremely concise instructions what to do when, they will draw out their little shapes and they'll make a mistake and they'll think it through, and that's how you learn the fretboard. You don't learn it just by regurgitating, You don't learn it just by reading tab till the cows come home, or by reading pages and pages and pages of arpeggios and things like what other books do. And again, I'm not advocating for not learning to read. I think it's incredibly important, but my order of learning to read would be learn theory first, learn the shapes and the sounds, then learn it on the fretboard, and then reading is just an afterthought. because you can relate everything to the root, which is what these diamonds are here, by the way. The diamonds are the roots, and the gray dots here are the sevenths. So you'll see, and if people do that themselves, they really learn it. And it's wonderful when you make a mistake, because then you'll always remember it. That's how it oftentimes works. So you see how these shapes here, A minor triads by areas, right? At the 7. Now I can do the same drill. You know, first of all, you want to just practice them bit by bit, you know. And if you know your pentatonic scales, this can be a little tricky, because the A minor pentatonic is exactly that, plus one note, plus which note? If you play an A minor 7 chord, D, yes, 4, yes, I'm getting hand signals from my crew here. So it's, if I add one note, meaning the 4th scale degree, then I have a minor pentatonic, right? And we practice the minor pentatonic also with shapes, right? But under your fingers, you may have this kind of shape. And to have this kind of shape without this D here under your belt, it's just a different feel, right? And what I recommend, you know, there's a phase in the pattern system where I really like muscle memory and repetition. Usually I'm not a big fan of just rote learning, doing some over and over and over and over and hoping for the best, right? There are way better ways to practice. But with these shapes, you really are involving the kinesthetic, meaning the felt sense. And this, you just want to get it under your belt, right? And what do you need to know? You need to know the shape, and you need to know where the roots are, those diamonds in the diagram, right? So the roots are here, and then I just play. And then you want to know this cold, all the way up the neck, right? And all I'm doing is I'm playing these shapes. There are many different ways how we practice them. So if I let you see this again, zoom if you want me bigger rather than the screen share, then you can just pull me wide. But one good way of practicing it, for example, is to practice all of these going up. Right? So all of them just going up. Then you do the opposite. You do the opposite. You go from the top down. Right? Then you combine it. You go one up, next one down. You know, so you can, then you start on top, you turn it around, you put on the track, you walk the thing, right? I'm just using these notes, nothing else. So that's just those notes, and they all fit, and you stay out of the way, and it will always work, right? And then a lot of people always tell me, gosh, you're flying all over the fretboard. Yeah, but it's, you know, it's a step-by-step process. I learned it, and I don't know any other way, quite frankly, than to do it systematically. And the way I think of it, you know, there's a system. You do step by step. You do every single area on the bass. You force yourself for a while to stay in one area, right? I have some advanced players in my groups, and they always, you know, because they are fit players, they want to go into the areas that they're most familiar with, right? But you eradicate all your black, dark, gray zones, right? So bit by bit, and it's just a systematic thing. And the goal also, I should say that, is not that you are... the goal is not that you can geek out on those patterns. And there's some of that in my pattern system. You know, we always go like, you know, could it be, you know, you could fit this pattern here, and why are you calling it pattern X and Y and Z and all of that. And it's wonderful to geek out, but the goal is to know the fretboard. So I know some systems have 7 shapes, some systems have 5 like mine, some have 3, they go by micro shapes. How you really do it doesn't matter as long as you stay consistent from beginning to end. And that's why I laid it out with 5, because I think when you know the 5, everything that flows from that is really easy to create. So we have 5 shapes, not 7. It's when you've done it all the way through, then you just have you can float between you. The goal is knowing the fretboard. The goal is not to be like sounding smart in a conversation. The goal is knowing the fretboard, and that's what we are 100% committed to with this method. So any questions about this? So just to recap what I just went over, I was talking about the importance of knowing music theory, because it enables you to understand which notes have certain effect. I could talk way more about this, because obviously you can use way more than just the triad notes or 4-note chords. You can use chromatic approaches. You can use, little rhythmic stuff. There's lots you can do, little burps, as one of my students likes to call them, embellishments. You can do a lot of different things to liven up this groove. But at the basis, you need to know where your notes are. That takes so much of the stress off, folks. It really does. You're poking around. It's like, where are my notes? Oh my God. It's very, very stressful. Versus when you just, in my mind, they light up all over the fretboard. There's no A minor 7, they light up. And then there's this E7, so those notes light up. And that is what you want. So that's a good goal to have. There's so many more things I have here on my list, but I think I will cap it here. Those of you who would like the assets, if you would like to watch the replay, if you would like access to the jam tracks, please put your name into everybody on Zoom. You will get this anyway, so that is included in what you're having anyway. And even if you're a guest on Zoom, I got you covered. But Fred will post the link where we can get all these assets. If you just sign up for the registration, I got you. So I will make sure that you get that. We'll probably get on that quite right now. So yeah, Fred's already posted it. Thanks so much. We want to make sure you get that. I don't know why that only went to. Oh no, it did go everywhere. All right, we're good. So yeah, any questions, wishes, concerns? What are your challenges? Anything I can help with before we tie this up? I want to see if there are any questions here on Zoom. Please pop them in the chat. Speed. Oh yeah. That's a good one, Jody. So part of what speed is it's a combination of technique in my mind and knowing it in your mind. So the fingers can hold you back, or the knowing what it is can hold you back, right? So it's a wonderful question and a little bit of a deeper answer than I'm prepared to do right now. But with things like this, what you can do, here's a good tip. I'll give you one tip. What you can do with a metronome that actually works. That's double time, right? So that's 260, because I'm treating the 130 quarter note now as 2 and 4. So actually I should do that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can, the idea is, whatever you can do, so this is how I would recommend you practice this. Do like 2 rounds of the 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, you do. Like a few bars of something, or you can even check it out. Or, let me go down that rabbit hole for 1 quick second. Write out a walking bass line for 4 bars. right? On a walking bass line, you can, in our jazz classes, we go very, very regimented. We go, okay, half steps, enclosures, you know, certain ways how you can liven up a walking bass line. Write it out and then practice it at this tempo. And then double it up. Right? So you know, because the challenge of playing fast in jazz, again, jazz is intriguing because it's spontaneous improvisation, right? And okay, now I see where you were going with this question, Jody. But it's the part of what slows us down is that the mind isn't quick enough in spontaneously doing stuff. So you can help yourself by just writing something out and just practicing and getting it under your fingers. But I now see the second part of your question. Can you go up with 16th notes would get me? Yeah. You know, that's my technique book and course that's on the way. But I will address it in our regular membership. Anything jazz related? Anything jazz related? All right, everybody. Then you're welcome. You're welcome. Fabulous, fabulous. So we did pull this off. We were streaming to, I think one channel didn't work, but everything else worked. So I'm thrilled to just test this. Everybody who tuned in just to check this out, thank you so much. I'm at arispaceblock.com. If you would like the assets, please put your name into the registration. Everybody on Zoom, you will receive the assets, the replay, the jam tracks, the diagrams and PDFs. And I love teaching. I love doing this. Nothing fires me up more than people eager to learn. And so thank you for your time and for your attention. And please keep swinging. Ding-a-la, ding-a-la, ding-a-la. Cheers, everybody. Have a wonderful Sunday.
Recording stop.